It's a Sunday morning. This is like National Public Radio where we're like, and coming up next is wait until you see this with our hot coffee and a Ghost energy drink, Cherry Limeade.
Yes, Cherry Limeade.
Followed by the exquisite workings of Z. Houston Zettelmeyer playing his fiddle for the company of the Rorschach test. It's Sunday morning. I'm just spitting words.
I'm tired.
Hi, tired. My name's Chris. How are you? All right, so I picked the movie. And instead of causing pain, I picked a thing called our newest movie.
It is. It has been our newest movie.
It's a little thing called The Iron Claw.
Ever since I was a child, people said my family was cursed. Mom tried to protect us with God. Pop tried to protect us with wrestling. He said if we were the toughest, the strongest, nothing could ever hurt us. I believed him. We all did.
Morning.
Pants tomorrow, please, David.
Perry, I want you to join your brothers in the ring.
Yes, sir. I love that. Woo!
Now, we all know Kerry's my favorite, then Kev, then David, then Mike. But the rankings can always change.
What do you want in life, Kevin Von Erich?
More ribs? I want to be with my family. You know, be with my brothers.
What do you like to do with your brothers?
Together, we can do anything.
We're here to restore justice to the Wrestling Federation that our father built with his own two hands. The hands that were passed down to us. The hands that will deliver the Iron Claw to you.
So what do you think? Like we're alive.
I love your family, Kevin.
You gonna be an uncle?
Yes, sir.
Oh, man, that makes me so happy.
I'll talk to you about something, Mom. Dad's too tough on us. You gotta say something.
Baby, that's what your brothers are for.
Feel that? You feel that? That's pressure.
You push it too hard.
I'm fine, Kev. Seriously, I'm just sick. I'm scared, man. It all out of control.
That's a terrible accident.
I should have stopped him. I need to think about my family.
Your job is to wrestle. Live up to that deal, or we are through.
I told you to look out for him!
I just love being out there with you guys. It's the only thing that matters to me.
The Bonner will forever be the greatest family in the history of wrestling.
Okay, The Iron Claw is about the Von Erich family, this longtime wrestling family that got started with Fritz Von Erich and his... Okay, in the movie, it's 5 sons?
I believe so. David, Kerry, Kevin, Mike, and Jack Jr.
Jack Jr. in the movie.
Yeah. So.
And we'll get to it later, but that was one of the things that was just inspired by the movie and not... There's a lot of stuff that's a little off with it. I mean, you get the point of what happened, but it's...
Well, they took a dramatic license.
Oh, yeah. Which it sounds like Kevin signed off on.
Yeah.
Spoiler, Kevin is the only brother still alive, so I'll go ahead and drop that on you. Film opens with Fritz in black and white complaining about not getting the NWA championship.
Fritz is the father.
Yeah. Fritz Von Erich, who...
He's a worm-loving man.
Yes. And they also, they downplayed in the movie that his wrestling persona was pretty much a Nazi. They did not bring that up. And I'm like, I knew Fritz was a German, but Fritz was this gruff guy when I was a kid. So it was like, okay.
Well, and that's his stage name.
Yeah, it's Jack Atkinson.
Yeah.
He was also a clarinet player.
Really?
Well, at least according to the movie.
Oh.
We do the time jump, and all the brothers are living at home with Fritz and Doris. And we're greeted with gratuitous Smokey and the Bandit poster. Really enjoyed that.
Not surprised you clocked that one.
They wrestle for... Fritz has his own promotion called World Class Championship Wrestling out of Dallas at the world-famous Sportatorium. It was world famous for a time. I'm not gonna lie.
But I was like, sportatorium.
All over the country, there were a lot of sportatoriums. I don't think they use that word anymore, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever heard that word.
Really?
Before this.
Yeah, sportatorium.
So I was like, what?
I believe it's a vacant lot now.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
I'm pretty sure the building's gone. But we get some wrestling, and David wrestles barefoot. You ask me why, and I'm like, I guess it's a matter of preference.
Is it David or Kevin?
Did I say David?
Yeah, you said David.
Okay. So there's some wrestling, and Kevin wrestles barefoot, and you ask me why he would wrestle barefoot.
Right.
I think it's just preference. I don't know. Usually when a guy wrestled barefoot, he was from the Pacific. A lot of those guys wrestled barefoot.
Right.
But I thought about looking it up. I'm like, I don't care. He did wrestle barefoot. I remember seeing real footage of him wrestling barefoot. So Kevin starts getting courted by Pam. She makes all the moves.
Yes, she does.
She just waltzes up and says, didn't your parents teach you how to ask questions or say hello or say thank you or something like that? And he just said, no, they taught me to do this. And he gives her the iron claw. That would have been funny.
The iron claw is a wrestling move.
It's literally just grabbing someone by the head. I used to do it to our children.
Yes.
Not like Jack, but...
No.
Feel the pressure! Feel the pressure! And I'm like, this guy knew this was a work? So they're priming Kevin, who is the oldest living son. They really don't talk about it too much about what happened.
No, they don't. They don't talk about it at all.
To Jack
correctly.
Kevin brings it up when he's first out with Pam.
Yeah.
But...
Oh, that's right.
The oldest Von Erich's son, and I kind of dug a little deeper to see what happened, apparently was walking home from school and touched the tongue to a trailer and was electrocuted. And he was in the snow and fell down and drowned in the snow.
That's horrific.
I guess Kevin was 3 years old because he's described it both ways.
Yeah.
One day his brother was there, the next day his brother was gone.
And I'm sure Fritz and Doris took him to counseling and, talked about it.
In the 50s? You're not going to a head shrinker.
Yeah, he was warm loving.
But Kevin's primed to become the number one contender for the
Heavyweight Championship.
The NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And his brother David is just getting into things. And it seems like Kevin can't really talk on the mic, but David can, which leads to the thing I've heard in that David, if you were to rate all the Von Erichs, David was probably the best all-around wrestler. He could wrestle, he could talk on the mic, he had a good shtick. So we've hit those two. We have David, Kevin, then there's Kerry, who is trying to get into the Olympics. He's training for the 1980 Olympics.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. We didn't go to the 1980 Olympics because it was in Moscow. Why didn't we go? Because they had invaded this country called Afghanistan, which is really ironic considering the last 40 years. So Kerry's out. Kerry comes home because there's not going to be any Olympics. I've always, I've been...
Why don't you just go the next time?
In 84, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's because Fritz is like, I can make money.
I don't know. I mean, he was such a warm and loving man.
Fritz was a fucking promoter. Then there's Mike, who is more interested in music than fucking wrestling. So much so that he gets a gig at a college, and his mother's like, no, you're not going. I love this part. His brothers are like, well, we'll take him. We'll watch him. And mom's still like, no. So they fucking sneak out.
She is Bible thumping, holy roller, whatever you want to call it, a good Christian woman.
And if there's any issue, it needs to go through Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. They go to the party.
Yeah,
and Carrie's doing cake stands.
Awesome cake stands. Jesus Christ.
These guys are built.
Yeah, they're
ripped.
It's definitely 80s wrestling. It's not the 70s anymore. Everyone's chiseled like a fucking piece of granite.
Oh, yeah.
Except Mike.
Poor Mike.
The musician.
I can't imagine why.
But they're there to support him. Kevin's like cheering on Kerry.
it's easy to see how tight these brothers were.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess you had to be, rely on each other and, with such a warm, loving father.
Oh, you're going to be on that the entire time, aren't
Absolutely.
you? Oh.
This man is an A-class piece of shit.
So Kevin, him and Pam sort of consummate their relationship at the party.
Yeah, they do. In the car.
She's a very forward gal.
She is. But you know what? She knows what she wants. And she wants Kevin.
And that's the thing. I think they're probably kind of sheltered.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like her. She went after what she wanted. She got it. Good for her.
So Kevin wrestles Harley Race.
I have notes here. It says Harley Race is a dirty fighter.
You know it's a work, right?
Do what?
It's not real.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
His character is a dirty fighter.
Oh, yeah. It's Harley Race. So in the match, one thing, Harley Race was a legitimate badass. And that's the reason he was the world champion, is because if it came to legitimately holding and keeping that title, it didn't matter who you were, he was going to kick their ass. And he wasn't a chiseled physique. He was just a guy you didn't fuck with. But in the middle of the match, he backdrops Kevin, and Kevin has some kind of, I don't know if he gets the wind knocked out of him or what, but he can't move.
He drops him on concrete.
Yeah, because there's no padding back then. This is the early 80s.
I can't even imagine what that felt like.
It hurts.
Oh, you think?
But he gets in the ring, and Kevin's not good on the mic. I can't remember if it was a count out or what happened. Or Harley pushes the ref.
Oh,
and it's a DQ, but nothing changes on a DQ. And then David comes in. David's great on the mic. But afterward, Fritz is like, "Fuck happened to you?" And then tells David, "Hey, great job on the mic. Good job." So there's that line early in the movie about the pecking order.
Oh, yeah, the dad ranks the children by his favorite. Well, y'all know Carrie's my favorite. What the fuck?
Then Kevin, then David, then Mike.
And it's subject to change, but usually Mike is always last.
And I'm willing to bet that if he was to throw in Jack Jr., he would still put Jack Jr. over Mike.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I bet that man despised Mike because he wasn't what he thought was an ideal person, I guess. I don't know.
Even though he played the fucking clarinet.
I think, Fritz had taken on his personality, Jack has taken on Fritz to be his whole life.
Jack is dead. You can call me Fritz.
Clearly.
There's this whole thing about Kevin getting a true title match against Harley, and it keeps getting put off and put off and put off, and Fritz gets getting more and more pissed. And then Harley does drop the title to this guy, Ric Flair.
Woo!
Jesus Christ. Don't go out for pizza with that guy.
Well, I mean, if he's paying.
Like I said, who spends $1,500 at a pizza place? So meanwhile, Carrie's back home. And of course, Fritz is like, "Hey, you should wrestle."
Of course.
So it sort of sets up this trailer-like scene where Mike's up in his room. He sees his mom leave. So he puts on Tom Sawyer by Rush. And Carrie's down there working out. He hears the song and boom, we have our new theme song. So they come out to Tom Sawyer.
Yeah.
Which really, I think Carrie was coming out to that in the 90s. Not when he worked for WWF. We're not paying that shit.
Right. They altered just a little bit.
Also, Carrie has started his cocaine habit.
Steroids.
Fritz has put David over Kevin.
Yeah, so now it's Carrie, David, Kevin.
A lot of steroids.
Yeah.
A lot of steroids. And if you notice something, Fritz doesn't give a shit, at least in the movie.
No, they're sitting on the bench in the locker room after the match, and there's a syringe and a vial sitting right next to one of them. I don't remember which one it was. And it's like, he didn't even see it. I guess it's a means to an end in his eyes.
See, I don't know if Kevin was involved in this, so I don't know if they added that or if that's something that actually happened.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to be able to remember a detail like that 40 years later,
I remember watching it and being like, "God damn, Fritz, there's a fucking syringe sitting right there on the bench."
Clearly he didn't give a fuck.
No, he No. I actually wrote down here, Fritz, no fucks. So Kevin and Pam get married. It is a very 80s wedding dress.
Oh, baby, that hair.
Meanwhile, David is ill in the bathroom, which there was a little license with this because I think in the actual timeline, David got ill a couple years later, yeah.
Getting ill, i.e. vomiting blood.
But he's got to go to Japan.
Yes, because apparently Fritz had a thing. If you book a gig, you go, no matter what.
You make your dates. So David goes to Japan.
Such a warm and loving man.
And he dies in his hotel room. Which, of course, when someone, especially a wrestler, dies in their hotel room, you know what they're thinking. It was drugs.
Drugs.
The movie uses the official cause of death from the U.S. Embassy, which was some intestinal thing.
Ruptured intestine.
There are some that say it was drugs. That we watched something about Bruiser Brody said he cleared the room of drugs. But then Kevin said that Bruiser Brody's a wrestler. I guess I should explain this.
We were watching Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah. And Kevin talks about Brody talking about finding him. Brody was usually a tough guy in and out. I guess he couldn't even keep his composure, explain to Kevin what he found in the hotel room. And Kevin didn't say anything about Brody finding drugs.
He found David laying there like he was reaching for the phone.
Yeah. To me, I go with the official autopsy results because all these stories about Brody saying he cleared the room of drugs. Brody died in the mid to late 80s. He was murdered in Puerto Rico. So I'm like, there's really nobody to dismiss those
accusations.
Yeah. So after David dies, Fritz is a loving, caring father.
Warm and loving.
He tells them not to cry.
Oh.
Don't wear the sunglasses. There'll be no crying today.
Yes, such a warm and loving man.
Now remember that. No crying at all.
You know, men aren't supposed to have feelings. And especially, I mean, you're supposed to...
Especially Germans.
Yeah. I mean, especially, you know...
I'm starting to think you're right about the whole... He took on his persona.
He absolutely did.
Is it the night after the funeral, that night, when Fritz sits them down, it's like, we gotta keep going for this NWA World title.
That's what it looked like in the movie. I don't know if that was true to life. I mean, I know they took some artistic license with that, but...
But it's between Kevin and Carrie.
Right.
And they both want it. And it comes down to a fucking coin toss.
Yeah.
Which Carrie wins. And they have the David Von Erich Parade of Champions.
Yeah.
And they drew 40,000+ people. So if you want to talk about milking your kid's death for a gate, this was it. And the main event was Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair.
Woo!
Pretty much in that situation, you have to let Kerry Von Erich win.
Absolutely, you have to.
I mean, you can't have Ric Flair cheat to win at the fucking match that's in honor of the guy's brother.
Oh, I also wrote, I just want to kick Fritz in the face. Shut the fuck up. Such a warm and loving man. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you didn't interrupt. All the Freebirds are in this. I'll throw this out there. I forgot to say that.
Was it MJF?
He was supposed to be Lance Von Erich. And I guess there's one scene later where...
Lance was supposed to be a cousin.
Yeah, and according to Dark Side of the Ring, people hated it. And they blamed the Von Erichs for it because they were like, you're bullshitting us now. I guess Fritz felt the need to just fill the ring with Von Erichs because they were making him money.
Yeah.
So Kerry wins the title, and in the movie, they make it seem like the night he wins the title, he has his motorcycle accident. Which it isn't. It's a couple years later.
Right.
Kerry has his accident. Fritz decides, you know who would be a great wrestler? My musician's son, Mike.
Yeah. No. No.
He does not want to do this. It's funny because you can see how they were trained to a degree because Kevin is kind of rough on him when they're doing the training sequence.
Fritz was such a loving, warm, and loving man.
But I'm just thinking, if Kevin's that tough on him during training,
right,
we could probably see that Kevin's training and David's training under Fritz was probably amped up 10 times.
Oh, I'm sure it was. The boys are all protective of Mike.
Yeah.
Fritz is always giving Mike a hard time. And was it Kevin went to their mom and said, "Can you talk to him? Because he's so hard on Mike." And she was like, "Well, your father's going to do what he's going to do." And that's the end of it. Okay.
So Mike's training. We learn in the motorcycle accident that Carrie lost. In the movie, he lost his foot.
Above the ankle.
Yeah. In reality, he lost the foot to the heel, is what Kevin said in the interview.
He was in a motorcycle accident and apparently put his foot down.
It was a reflex reaction. Put his foot down, and somebody said it looked like it was mangled by a grizzly bear from the ankle down.
Yeah.
Carrie's out. Fritz is like, we gotta get another fucking Von Erich in there. So they send Mike in. In the movie, he has one match and is immediately injured.
Yeah, his shoulder gets dislocated.
Which he actually had a few matches. I guess he wrestled Flair. And people are like, Flair's having to carry him in these matches because he doesn't have the athletic ability of his brothers.
No.
And he knows that.
Yeah.
That's why he wanted to be a musician. Now, in reality, the match where he dislocated his shoulder was in Tel Aviv. And they took him in, and I guess it was mangled. They flew him back. He ended up with a staph infection and got a fever over 105, this is all in the movie. And once you get a fever over 105, there's going to be some brain damage. So Mike is probably brain damaged at this point.
They showed some footage of him talking.
And
it's
yeah,
very obvious that there was some brain damage.
In the movie, it makes the allusion to the brain damage, which was caused by wrestling, has caused him to lose his musical ability. I think what he ends up doing in the movie is because he lost his music.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget that throughout this movie, they're saying there's a Von Erich curse.
Yeah, there's a curse. It's Fritz Von Erich.
That is an accurate
I
statement.
think at the end of I wrote that down at the end of the movie, that the curse that they keep talking about was Fritz. And I'll get to that at the end.
Yeah. So Kevin is camping out at the sportatorium.
He's lost it because of the fucking curse.
Yes.
Because he has a child now.
Yeah, because David's dead now. And so he doesn't want his wife or his child to be affected by this curse.
Meanwhile, Carrie is trying to make his comeback, missing a foot, which him and Kevin are arguing about it. I think Carrie's a little jealous that Kevin has his feet, which at the end of the day, if he was jealous, it was a great motivator, because I'm going to go ahead and spoil it right now. The dude could still move, missing a foot, but I think it's because of Fritz and that thing about showing weakness.
Yeah.
It would have been a great comeback story. This guy lost his foot.
Yeah.
And look at what he can do.
Yeah, it would have been. But Fritz and his...
In the midst of all this, Mike downs a bottle of pills.
Goes out to the woods surrounding their house.
And he dies. He kills himself. Which causes Kevin to slip even further. It slips so far that he goes to another dimension and wrestles probably the worst version of Ric Flair I have seen in my fucking life.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
It's like, here, read this, but don't watch any video of Ric Flair from that era.
It was like, anybody knows anything about Ric Flair, it's the woo! You know, this guy's like, woo!
He can't even do that. You know how many people do a Flair?
I mean, I'm doing a Flair.
It's
so bad.
It's terrible. And I heard about this before going to see the movie. I'm like, oh, this Ric Flair can't be that bad.
Yes, it was.
I've been watching wrestling on and off, 38 years now. Yeah, that was the worst Ric Flair I've ever seen. The guy that was Harley, he fucking nailed it. Harley was like just a snake, like this title here. But this Flair, oh my God. And even when he came to the ring, it was like Temu Ric Flair.
It was bad.
But in the middle of the match, and here's the thing about it. This movie presented a lot of it as reality. So Kevin snaps, according to the movie. But I don't know if this was pre-planned or... I don't get that. He snaps and he gets disqualified. Which I'm like...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Fritz is all pissed off. But Flair fucking loved it. Flair walks into the locker room and he's like...
Yeah.
Yeah. I will wrestle you I could probably do a bit of Ric Flair right now. I will wrestle you any fucking day, Kevin Von Erich. Now, where's the guy get fucked up around here? But Fritz is disappointed, even though his son made the world heavyweight champion look like a bitch. But after Fritz does that, and after snapping with Flair, Kevin decides to go home. And he becomes the father he never had.
Yes.
And Kevin ends up running world-class championship wrestling. Eventually.
Yes.
And I'm not sure the time jump, but Fritz is out. And I guess Fritz gives him the company, which is really sweet of him because the company's going in the toilet.
Belly up, baby.
Because at that point, everybody's dropping like flies. Kevin gets an offer to sell the company to Jerry Jarrett, which you're like, who? He ran Memphis. He was still around. The funny thing is Jerry Lawler.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's them. The funny thing is when Vince went his steroid trial, Jerry Jarrett was brought into the company. And there's some argument about whether if Vince went to prison, if Jerry was going to run shit.
This is Jeff Jarrett's dad?
Jeff Jarrett's dad. Meanwhile, Kerry's with the WWF. Fritz doesn't want to sell. He's like, if you sell this company, don't even bother coming into this house again. And at that point, you're like, okay.
Sure, done.
Kevin also notices that him and his brothers may have been fucked out of money by his dad.
Oh, yeah, he's going over the books.
And then it's Christmas time.
Oh, Christmas time. We're such a warm and loving family.
Kerry comes home. Here, Dad, have a gun. I think it was .357 Magnum.
I have no idea.
And Kerry's just obsessed with Fritz shooting it right now because I think Kerry is wanting Fritz's approval.
I just wrote, Kerry is high as a kite.
Oh, yeah.
Comes home for Christmas.
And that's why he got fired.
Yes.
That's why Vince fired him.
Vince released Kerry. We were watching Dark Side of the Ring. Kerry had a drug problem, and he was getting ready to be indicted on charges.
He was on probation before that.
Yeah.
And then he got arrested for more drug charges, which they don't go into in the movie.
No, they don't. They don't mention it at all in the movie.
No. But Kerry calls Kevin, concerned.
In the middle of the night, isn't it?
Yeah. Kevin Von Erich says he can't handle, even to this day, he can't handle calls in the middle of the night.
Yeah, well, I'm
because
sure
all this shit was in the middle of the night.
David, when
Yep.
David died, when Kerry's
call, and then
PTSD.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Kerry calls, talking suicide. Kevin calls Fritz, and Fritz says the immortal line, "This is between you two. You guys need to work it out."
Such a warm and loving man.
In the movie, Kevin goes out, and they hear shots, and Kerry had shot himself. I think he shoots himself in the chest.
Yeah, right in his heart. Of course, Fritz blames Kevin that it's his fault.
You should have been here.
Yes.
Oh, fuck, Fritz, you were right there. And then there's a scene when it's sort of the Rainbow Bridge where Kerry's on a boat and he sees his brothers on a dock. He's going across this pond or whatever.
His deceased brothers.
Yeah.
Of course, there's only one brother left now, so.
And he leaves a coin. Do you know what the coin is?
No, I don't.
It's the coin Fritz flipped for the match with Flair. It's the same fucking coin. So he goes up, sees all his brothers. He's got his foot back, and he gets to meet Jack Jr., who's still a little boy.
Yeah.
People thought it was hokey, but I thought it was
I thought it was nice.
It was a nice touch.
They, and it was just heartbreaking because,
It cuts back to Kevin, and he's carried Kerry into the house.
Yeah.
And he's losing
He's by
it.
himself now.
Yeah.
While all of his brothers are together, and he's by himself.
Yeah.
Well, he's got Fritz.
No, he doesn't, because he sells the company to Jerry Jarrett.
Aww.
And then the movie ends with Kevin in the yard with his sons. And his sons are out there playing football, which is something that he did with his brothers earlier in the movie.
Right.
And he's just sitting there, and he finally gets to cry and get it all out.
After all of his brothers have died.
And his sons come over, and they ask him why he's crying, and he says, well, I'm sad because of my brothers.
I was a brother, but now I'm not.
Nah, I'm not a brother anymore. Which apparently he had told, he said that before.
Right.
And his sons say, we'll be your brothers.
Aww.
And they go out and play football. And that's it. So yeah, that was a happy little movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, do you have anything to say, or do you want me to go into... All right. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that clearly I enjoyed this movie.
Especially Fritz.
Oh, such a warm and loving man.
So instead of calling this fun facts, I'm calling this Fritz facts. Because they're not very fun.
No, it's a tragic story.
Oh, yeah. I'd known about it. Because, like I said, I watched this.
I mean, I've just known about it from what you've told me.
I didn't know who was going to go see it. And I'm like, I better prepare these fuckers for what's going to happen. Because they don't really talk about it in the trailer. But I'm like,
Right.
I'm pretty sure all of them except one are dead. And a lot of them were suicides. Fritz facts. When Fritz mentions a guy named Hellwig at Christmas having the title,
Yeah.
that's the Ultimate Warrior.
Ah.
Mike Von Erich actually wrestled before David died. We're going to be clearing up a lot of the timeline here. So he was already getting into it before David died. It's probably that Fritz escalated it because I need to put as many Von Erichs as possible. Give me fake Von Erichs.
Right.
Lance Von Erich. To add to the curse, David lost a daughter at 1 year old before his death.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's another one. And then there was a sixth brother named Chris, who was not of the stature. He was 5'5". And, of course, it was sort of, he wanted to be a wrestler, but he had asthma, he was short. He did get himself built up from the videos. But because of his asthma medication, his bones were brittle, and he got injured. He got depressed. And I think he called Kevin. He called Kevin in the middle of the night wanting his VCR back. And
I hope they unplug their phones at night. I mean, seriously. Turn off the fucking phone, dude.
he went out and shot himself at 21 in 1990 or 1991. But they cut Chris out because the writer and the director said sometimes there's too much because it's just one brother after another dying
right
at that point. They sort of combined Chris with Mike since a lot of the characteristics they shared. Doris divorced Fritz in 1992.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well,
I saw them two go in the distance.
At the end of the movie, this may be your favorite. Fritz comes in and he's like, "What's for dinner?"
And she's painting.
And she's like, "Well, I'm not hungry. I guess you have to find something yourself."
What a dick.
And Fritz is so awestruck that he just sits down. It's like he's been hit by a train. Because he's like, "I have to make my own dinner?"
Oh, poor baby.
They divorced in 92, which was the year before Carrie died. So she's lost 4 sons. And that's when she divorces Fritz. And then Carrie ends up killing himself. Fritz died in 97 of cancer. Which there was another story we heard, which leads to...
Well, I hope he suffered.
Kevin talks about... Cause I guess Kevin actually stayed in contact with Fritz till the end. Kevin went and saw Fritz. Fritz had brain cancer. Fritz pulled a gun on Kevin and is holding the gun to him and tells him, "You didn't have the guts to do it." And Kevin's just saying, "Put the gun down." And Kevin says he saw his dad contemplating whether or not to pull that trigger. So he got the hell out of there because he said, "I'm not going to let brain cancer kill me." But even to that point, he was glad when his dad passed because all his suffering was over. And then Carrie wrestled. At first he was Kerry Von Erich, but then he became the Texas Tornado in the late 80s, early 90s in the WWF.
Yeah.
I saw him. I didn't know he was missing a foot. I had no idea. I saw him live here at the convention center back in the day. Yeah. I mean, I knew it was Kerry Von Erich.
Right.
Because I didn't watch the show. And by the time I got into it, I know David was dead. I think Mike was dead. I wasn't sure about the others. But I remember having a book about wrestlers, which was pretty well... You can tell Fritz got paid out of this because it was a lot of the guys who worked for him. And then I had a board game called the Von Erich Family Board Game.
Jesus. That sounds like a great game.
I wish I still had it, because sealed ones go for like $300. The instructions read like Dungeons and Dragons, so I never played it. But I had some cards and shit, and I messed with those. And because my parents were just buying me wrestling shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. So what did you think of the Iron Claw?
I liked it. I mean, I like... What's his...
Fritz. His name was Fritz.
Oh, what a piece of shit. Jesus Christ. Sorry. He is just a fucking piece of work.
Well, we heard that story about how his dad, Fritz's dad, would have him bare knuckle fighting kids in the street.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, there's a vicious circle here.
This is generational trauma.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I'm sorry, but when you have 6 children and only one of them is still alive and the majority have died by suicide?
Well, Carrie had at least 1 or 2 daughters that they don't mention in the movie.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what happened to that? Because apparently Carrie was talking about killing himself before even leaving the WWF, because him and Bret Hart were close because they'd grown up the same way. They had dads that were wrestlers, that had big families, and they were all put in the business. And Carrie kept talking about he wanted to die to be with his brothers and all. And Bret told him, I think your daughters need you more now than your brothers.
Oh my God.
Kevin has 2 kids that are wrestlers.
Well, he had
Or 3.
Because he had a daughter too, and she wrestled briefly.
No, that was Carrie's daughter.
Oh, was that Carrie's daughter?
Yeah. Lacey?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's Carrie's daughter.
Oh, Kevin's got the 2 boys.
Yeah.
Who both wrestled.
Yeah.
And then they've got children of their own.
Yeah.
Kevin still has the same haircut he had in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah, but
I mean, whatever. To each their own. You know?
he got as far away from fucking Texas as you can without leaving the country.
Well, I can't blame him.
He moved to Hawaii.
Well, yeah.
But I didn't know he was wrestling up to the 2000s.
He's the only one who survived. I don't know. I mean...
This is why I think Fritz was the curse. He's the one that got away from him.
Yeah.
And his life has been... He got the life he wanted.
Yeah, he did.
His kids and his grandchildren. And because Kevin says something about he wants to have a big ranch.
Right.
And have everybody stay there.
Isn't that what happens?
That's what's going on in Hawaii with his kids.
And him and his wife are still married, correct?
Yeah, 40 years later.
Wow.
He's not Fritz. That's probably why.
God.
I'm sure there were some things hinted in the movie that she said about Fritz, but I'm sure she was more vocal in reality.
Well, when she hugged him for the first time, I said, "What's a hug? What is this? What are you doing with your arms? This is weird. It's a hug." I will never understand people who can do this, who can be like this towards their children.
No, I can't.
I will never understand that.
I'm like that towards other people, but...
Yeah, I know that, but your own children.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, I like my kids.
I know. There's a select few. But anywho.
So you enjoyed it?
I did.
As much as you can enjoy.
He was the curse. He was the curse.
That's what I was thinking.
100%.
Taking notes.
All right. How many stars do you give this thing?
4.
I agree. I concur.
It's a 4.
It's definitely a 4.
Zac Efron was great in it. I guess we should say it was Zac Efron.
Zac Efron was Kevin. Hold on. I can never remember the actor's name. He played Lip on Shameless. He's in The Bear. He played Carrie. Jeremy Allen White. Maura Tierney played their mother. Holt McCallany was Fritz. Let's see what he's been in. Fight Club. He was the mechanic.
Could you imagine Fritz von Erich in Fight Club?
61st Street. Justice League. He was a burglar in Justice League.
Is that the guy that Batman beats the shit out of in the beginning?
I don't know. It says burglar uncredited.
Now I gotta look at fucking Justice League.
Sorry.
Because at the beginning when he catches a burglar, then one of those things shows up.
Yeah.
I wonder if he was the burglar.
He might be.
I'll check that. The 4-star.
Yeah, it was really good. I liked it.
I saw it in the theater. We went to see it, me and my son, because he was interested in it. And I'm like, well, I knew the backstory. I'm surprised it didn't get more awards buzz, but whatever. Of course, there were only 3 people in the theater when we saw it, and we were 2 of them. But it was a Saturday afternoon. Yeah, I liked it. I've watched wrestling off and on for almost 40 years now.
Yeah.
It's just... Anymore, I don't really watch. I watch it occasionally, but it's more follow up on the background stuff and then the history of it. Stuff like that.
Well, I mean, we've been watching, we watched WrestleMania and we watched Royal Rumble, but that's pretty much all we've been.
Yeah, I watch pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Because they come with Peacock, so.
I didn't go see this because, well, we have a 9-year-old, so.
That's a good movie to take a 9-year-old to.
This is not a movie that we would take her to, so.
For further reading, not really reading, but watching, if you have Peacock, WWE Network, they have a bunch of world-class shows.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I always like to know a backstory behind that.
Yeah.
Inspired by true events type of thing. I mean, you and I are similar in that aspect of that, we're like, oh, well. And I'm sure a lot of people do this of, well, let me see if that's accurate, and we're all looking it up.
Well, that was the thing with Carrie. I'm like, I know he was still around in the 90s. I don't remember this going that fast, but.
Artistic license.
Oh, yeah. It's like they said, you couldn't have put another brother in that kills himself. That's like.
Yeah, I know.
Enough.
Please stop.
Beat me over the head.
Please stop. Please stop.
Then it becomes Cannibal Holocaust. It just beats you over the head for an hour and a half.
I will not be watching that movie.
Oh, really? You won't?
Nope. I draw the line at that movie.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
That was not part of the parameters.
You don't want to watch it again.
No, I don't want to watch it again.
And that's why we have to watch them together.
And that's saying a lot. Because I watch a lot of shit.
You have seen some shit.
Yeah. I told you about the one I just finished. I watched a year ago, but I just finished reviewing it.
So bad.
Yeah, the movie has a mood disorder.
Anyway.
All right, let's do this.
You ready?
What movie is this going to be? Here comes Pain.
1998.
98?
2 hours in length.
Jesus.
Rated R. Chris Christopherson.
The fuck? Oh!
You know exactly which one this is.
Yeah. I'm like, what? A Star is Born? That's about 20 years later. It's Blade.
It is Blade.
Never seen Blade. Why haven't I seen Blade? Oh, I'll tell you on the show.
It gets a 7.1 on IMDb.
Do we own it?
I believe so. It's a comic book movie. It would be there in the comic book section.
Well, don't worry. My next movie, I know that we have it.
I'm so glad it's your movie collection.
We honestly probably have 3 copies of it.
I didn't... Oh, Tracy Lords is in this movie. Interesting. I always think about her in Crybaby. That's the movie I go to when I think about Tracy Lords is Crybaby. Wesley Snipes, Stephen Dorff, Chris Christopherson, let's see, Udo Kier? Arlie Jones.
Udo Kier?
Yeah.
Do you know that shitty Andy Warhol Dracula and Frankenstein movie I had to watch?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's Dracula in one and he's Dr. Frankenstein in the other.
Let's see.
That's Udo Kier. He's like a German legend.
Oh, I see.
You're like, what the fuck?
All right, if you say so.
Yeah, those movies suck.
So, next time, we're going to talk about Blade.
Blade. All right. Sounds good. So, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't.
All right. And so long for just a while.
Bye!